Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thanks for Swiping Left, episode 5. I'm Matthew
And
Conrado,
it's me, Rossi.
and we are so excited because we have our first guest today.
I know.
Before we get to our guest, why don't you start us off with a little story time?
Well, obviously, me and Matthew record like so long apart, like it's ridiculous. But we really haven't done one over the summer, have we?
We're very consistent, at least like it's like I'm like, you know what? I know somebody was asking me about this podcast. I was like, you know what? We do it when we
We
can,
do it when we can,
but we do it.
but we
We
do
do it.
it. And do you know what? I'm not mad at it because, like, this summer has been crazy. And I think the last time we spoke, my work and your work, Matthew, has absolutely gone crazy in the
I
best
know.
kind of way.
Can we just say though, like full circle, from when we
Hmm.
started this podcast to now, Rossi, you're just like a star. You're shining. And it
Thank
was like
you.
to see you go from, you know, my boyfriend putting chicken in my friend my ex-boyfriend's radiator to I'm now touring the world with like massive stars. Like, can we just that is a full 360 180. I don't know whatever you want to call it.
That is two 360s. That is crazy. When you say it like that, I mean, the thought of putting chicken in someone's radiator literally about 7 months ago, yeah,
It
to
was it
now.
was iconic though. It was an iconic moment.
Crazy when you put it like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, work has just taken off in the most incredible way. I'm really busy, which is why we've struggled. I couldn't even do the interview with this amazing guest, Nick, because I was just here, there, and everywhere. Work is amazing, but I've never worked so much in my life, Matthew. Is this what people have been doing all these years?
Yeah, then we'll get to New York, and then you'll really see that's like our whole personality.
It's crazy, but I did manage to get away this summer. I went twice to Mykonos, and well, obviously we love to go. The second time, I had a real awakening experience. Like it
Oh
was
yeah.
it was something that happened that I've never experienced before. It's the first time ever trying it. It's not drugs, but don't worry,
Yeah,
because we've tried all of those. Um,
like been there.
yeah, I basically I knew a guy that was there who I met last year. I wanted to take him to the lighthouse to experience like the sunset. And he was like, I would love to experience that because I've been doing Mykonos a little bit differently. I don't really do the beach clubs anymore. I like to kind of like take myself away and just experience these like moments. Um, and I was like, I'd love for you to experience it too. And he said, that'd be great. Can I bring my friend along with me? It's this moment of like three total strangers on the very tip of this mountain watching the sunset, and it's just ocean before us. And I got goosebumps talking about it because this is what makes me want to live my life. We got to know each other really deeply, and what he does is sexual Reiki.
Ooh,
Hmm.
do tell more.
So, if you're not familiar with Reiki, Reiki is basically like this thing that people do where they clean out your chakras, right?
I need that.
Yeah, honestly, I needed it too. So he does this Reiki on me, right? And it's this process, and it went on for about 45 minutes where he would go into the different chakras and just kind of like he would do this process of like healing whatever it was. And then when he brought me around, he asked me to go into the sea and just kind of like cleanse it off. And now I sound heavy to me, but I got into that sea. I was so light. I floated. It was amazing. And as I came out of the water, I just uncontrollably couldn't stop crying. Like it was like this moment of like, what? And I said to him, what's happening? And he was like, it's just that trauma leaving your body.
Oh, where is he based? Can I hire him?
He's based in Australia,
Ugh.
um, but just incredible. And
And
we,
do you feel like do you feel cleansed from like a sexual experience or
I
like
feel cleansed sexually, emotionally, like all the trauma I feel like really lifted. And
wow.
I took them. Did I ever take you to Riz's, that restaurant in the middle of the island?
I don't
It's
remember.
an
I don't think so.
amazing farmhouse, and I took them there afterwards, and it was just like incredible. And ever since that moment, I just feel lighter. Work has become like amazing. I just feel like the energy's shifted. I know.
I need to do it. Okay. You've inspired me. Maybe I'll look
Really,
into.
honestly,
I'm sure they gotta go have it in New York, or
oh my
I'm
goodness,
going
it
to
must be on
LA.
every street corner,
Yeah.
100%. Like,
Or I'm going to LA. Maybe I'll do it there. I'll just
yeah,
there's a healer, a Reiki healer on every, Air One smoothie
100%.
stand.
I couldn't recommend it
100.
more, honestly. And you have to go in with an open mind, but I didn't have any expectation, and it was just again Mykonos bringing me close to two people who are
You
now
know,
just some of the best souls.
Mykonos gifts you beautiful things in life, I must
Mm-hmm.
say. It sounds just like every time you're up for a big shift, Mykonos happens. So
100%.
what's happened in Mykonos stays in your body.
Yeah,
So
which
yeah.
I think actually, and what I love about our guest today is his kind of like vision of how he wants to live his life, and also like meet new people and get more out of life and experiences.
Yeah, and that's a great segue. So, everyone listening, my friend Nick Maddock is our guest, our special first guest from the Thanks for Swiping Left podcast. And I am so excited to have him. He is somebody I look up to. He's just truly one of the most open minded and
Positive,
kind and thoughtful, positive people. And I think, we could all learn from him. Just especially when we're dealing with the shit that's going on right now with the world.
mm,
Like, there's so much more than the bubble that we live in, and I think that's what Nick embodies as a human.
one hundred
So
percent. Couldn't agree more.
totally. So Rossi, why don't you give us an intro to Nick, and then we'll start off. And then, but for context, we filmed his conversation a while ago when I was on Fire Island, so I was looking a little beat up. But I think the conversation's great, and I'm so excited for
You
everybody
were
to
on
hear it.
Fire Island when you interviewed
I
him.
look like shit, girl. I had slept like 5 hours, 4 hours, and I was like, I'm here, we're here. But it was actually a beautiful conversation. But again, that's on brand
One hundred
for me and
percent.
Nick, and on brand, and it was a great conversation. I'm so excited for everyone to listen to it.
So, Nick Maddock is a travel storyteller and author of the upcoming memoir, Leaving to Live. His journey didn't start with Wanderlust, it actually started with loss. Just weeks after his dad died by suicide, his brother had a near fatal stroke. That double tragedy forced Nick to ask, if I were on my deathbed tomorrow, would I be happy with the way I lived? The answer was no.
So soon after, Nick left his corporate job at Capital One, sold his belongings, and set off to find a different kind of life, one filled with purpose, connection, and adventure. And it all started with a one-way ticket to New Zealand and a $350 camper van purchased off Grindr. I remember that. His original mission was to honor his dad's wish of having his ashes spread across the world, but over time, that mission evolved into something bigger, seeking his own version of a happy deathbed and helping others to do the same. Now, having lived in 4 different vans with 125 countries visited, Nick has built a global audience creating raw, witty, and heartfelt travel content that challenges stereotypes, especially in places often misunderstood in Western media. He spent days in Bulgarian prison, came face to face with the Taliban as a gay man, was robbed and nearly kidnapped in Haiti, fell in love twice, or maybe more, on the road, and met more amazing humans in a few years than most do in a lifetime. 2025 marks a new chapter, no longer just his Eat, Pray, Love journey, but a collective mission to bridge cultural divides and bring people along for the ride. So, everyone, I'm so excited. Here's my conversation with Nick Maddock. And there he is. Hello, Mr. Nick Maddock.
Hello, hello. How we doing, Mr. Conrado?
I am good. I'm in Fire Island Pines, but the better question is, where are you?
I am in Marrakesh, Morocco, which is kind of like a little Fire Island Pines.
Oh, I'm
Not quite
so
actually.
jealous. I hope you're getting some. What is Morocco like textiles?
Something like that. Rugs,
Rugs, rugs.
textiles.
Are you gonna
Yeah,
bring a rug back for me?
exactly.
Oh, thank you. A custom rug. That's what I want.
Got you. Got you. I got you.
My little Carrie Bradshaw moment. Well, thank you so much for coming on board. Thanks for swiping left. We are so excited to have you as our first guest.
Woohoo! It's an honor.
This is I think, it starts off so well because just for anyone who doesn't know, me and Nick have known each other for about 10 years now. We met at
That's
Little Old
that's
Elks for
actually crazy to think
undergrad. I know. I know. It's been 10 years, a decade. We're getting old. I
about.
remember Nick saying that he was going to take a year off sabbatical, and here 10 years later, he's traveled all over the world. He's writing a book. Nick truly is one of the most interesting, kind, genuine, and curious people that I know. Actually, here's a funny story. Nick is the only person I allow to have Find My Friends on my phone
Oh, really?
because I always know that at some point I'll run into him in another country and I want him to know that I'm there. So that's how much I love, trust, and am just inspired by Nick. So Nick
So
Maddock,
if any guy
everyone,
needs Matt's
thank you. Thank you.
location,
Yeah. Anytime I'm getting dick down somewhere, just ask Nick.
I love
Well,
it.
Nick, again, like that is just like a short summary to how of incredible of a human you are. And I'm so grateful for you to be on the podcast as our first
Thank you.
guest. Like I cannot speak highly enough about you. But so let's jump into it. Nick, I think, after hearing just such an incredible biography, I think I want to give our listeners a little bit of an understanding of just who you were and who you started. Because I know you as a friend, I know your story, but I think it really is. We can talk about your accomplishments for days, but I think what's really interesting to start out is where you came from. So why don't you tell people where you're from, and let's talk about what Nick was like as a child.
So, born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, so a little Midwestern boy. I think I had a pretty normal life. I grew up with mom being a waiter, dad being a truck driver. Went to public school, went to a small school in southern Missouri called Southeast Missouri State University. Wasn't until out for undergrad conference, actually, that is where I met Matt. That kind of blew the lid off the expectations of my life and what I wanted to do with my life. And that's what eventually led me to Capital One and living in DC and New York. And, I was talking to Matt about this, before the interview, and I kind of said, like, my life, I think, was kind of pretty normal. Growing up, and, I left college and went and got a job in finance and stuff like that. And I wouldn't say my life was like extraordinary or exciting or anything like that. Just kind of a average life. And obviously, the events that transpired with my dad was just kind of the wake up call to whether or not it was that normal life that I wanted and that I was willing to settle for.
Totally. I think we hear all these incredible stories and we hear the end result, but like to know that like if you are listening to this on your way to the gym or on the way to work, like anything could change tomorrow, and that could prompt something that could change your life. Like when Nick started this, literally, I remember building the Capital One cafes and then said, you know what, I'm meant for something greater. So if you're listening to this right now, thinking kind of the same thing, like, and just do it. Just do it and go for it and give yourself a year, give yourself a timeline. And then, it could last a year, it could last 10 years like Nick. I think that's super important. How did growing up in St. Louis, Missouri shape who you are today? Like, how do you keep those roots and those cores being from St. Louis, having now experienced pretty much most of the world?
I wouldn't say my geography shaped me too much, of at least like being from the Midwest. I mean, maybe it did, but in ways that I'd actually, so I think what shaped me more than the geography of just being in St. Louis was like the things that occurred in my life, like maybe as a child. So for example, one thing I think of is like when my parents got divorced. They got divorced when I was in seventh grade. And, my dad lived in one house a mile away from my mom. And because of that, I literally split my time evenly, and I switched just back and forth between houses. And I kind of considered, like, from seventh grade onward, like I did not have one home, right? And I look back on that, and as I was writing my book, I kind of reflect on that a lot. And this idea that like I almost started being this nomad from an early age, right? And maybe I didn't like realize it at the time, but my whole entire life then, from that point, from then going to college to then joining a rotational program in finance where I was literally 9 months in a role, and then I moved 9 months in a role, and then I moved 9 months in a role, to then taking my last job, which was opening up the cafes, where I was 3 months in a place, 3 months in a place. So it's interesting because actually really from seventh grade onward, I've been a nomad. So my childhood has been shaped by being in all these different places, right? And it wasn't until I really started writing my book when I realized like that is probably why I'm so okay with this type of lifestyle I'm living now, of not having one
Yeah,
single location. So, it's almost the opposite effect. Like, it's not that the core of where I grew up in the Midwest shaped me. It's the not having any singular home that I think truly shaped me more.
totally. And I think that's what I find so fascinating as someone who's also nomaded is when you live in a constant state of change and a constant state of like growth. I think, most people look for that. But my question to you, as somebody who has a similar experience, not to the extent that you have, but like, what is one thing about you that has never changed?
I'd say my willingness to push the boundaries,
I
to
love that.
be to be a little bit audacious, to push my comfort zone, to just like take a risk. Um, you know, you know, yeah, that's it. Just push
Yeah, I love
whatever
that.
little zone or bubble is trying to hold me in. And I feel like you resonate
Yeah.
a lot with this too. I feel like you're
Oh,
on this.
totally. I listen. I if I don't would never get a tattoo, but if I were to get a tattoo, my mantra in life would be find your comfort zone and leave it. That is the one thing that I stay totally. I live my life by,
Yeah,
because if there's again, the one constant is not having a constant, and to
exactly.
constantly grow and to constantly feel uncomfortable and to constantly change, because I think that's how you grow. Okay, well, thank you for that.
I am I am such an advocate of this idea. I am a bold believer that discomfort equals growth in every single facet of your life, whether it's mourning the loss of a loved one, whether it's losing your job, whether it's sitting on coal. Literally every single bit of discomfort you have, you are growing in some way when you break it down. And I think if you can keep that single like mindset there when you do feel that discomfort, it helps you to justify it and it helps make it a little bit easier through
Totally,
whatever you're going through. So that's kind of been just a core component of like how I've got through some of the things that I have, especially like along my journey and the adversity that I faced. I know that it's helping prepare me for something else or building me into something that I can then handle easier in the
totally.
future. So just makes life a little easier when the shit goes the fan.
which is which is so timely, because I think, just in the age of the algorithm and the age of, everybody wants to feel good all the time and have this constant hits of dopamine. Like, I do think what's losing in society is the ability to face adversity and the ability to feel a little uncomfortable. But with that uncomfortability comes growth, and I think that's a universal message that we need to be spreading more, um, especially as we go through some very trivial times, but learning how to go through those trivial times. I think, I loved, there was a TikTok that I saw one time where it's like, we have to understand the difference between unsafe and uncomfortable. And uncomfortable is actually where we lean into the growth.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that. I think it's a beautiful message. The next couple of questions I want to talk to you is about your family. Um, and Nick, I think you've gone through something
Yeah.
that can really resonate with some of our listeners, and some may have no experience with this, but I want to start at the core. Can you talk about your relationship with your dad and brother when you were younger?
Yeah, absolutely. So with my dad, it was always good. My dad was a real macho man, tough guy. So we did have some issues around me being LGBT or me being gay. He eventually started to get a little better with it, but when I first came out, it definitely was a separating point between us. But still, through that, I mean, I remember the day that I came out to him. His last words to me when I walked out the door were, "I still love you." So that's pretty good for someone who truly didn't accept that part of me. But he got better with that in time. But he was a great father. Great father. Took me four wheeling, dirt biking. Took me out on the boat on the weekends. Went to the baseball practice. So really, just a good all around dad. He was definitely my best friend in the world.
I love
No doubt
that.
about it.
And your brother?
And then brother, he's a freaking goofball. He's always been a goofball, but he's always had my back. And when, also when I came out of the closet, he was one of the very first people who, like, if anyone ever said anything bad about me or one of his friends or something like that, he'd
Yeah.
be throwing fists. So he's been my biggest supporter in that way and in many other ways too. And especially since my dad's passing, me and him are
Yeah.
inseparable now. Absolutely inseparable. He just came and visited me here in Spain. We traveled together, had a great time. He's traveled a few times with me around the world.
I asked this question.
Yeah.
It gets a little vulnerable, but what was the last conversation with your father like? If you remember?
Yeah. It was just a normal goodbye. That's all. He actually had left Washington D.C. where he was visiting me. He was visiting my home for the first time in D.C. And it was, me dropping him off at the airport to fly back to St. Louis. And I would just say it was a goodbye, just like any other that you guys probably have with your parents every single day. And that's kind of the point I want to bring home with that, is that you just never know when it's going to happen. You never know. And you always hear those cliche sayings about, like, make sure every goodbye is like
it's true.
No,
it's
true. It's so freaking true.
And I feel that in the sense of, I think we're in a very highly polarized time. And as gay people, a lot of us too also have like political discourse or political disagreement with our family. And I do think about that sometimes. Like I lost my aunt recently to cancer. And I like, when I get in fights with my mother, I'm like, I don't ever want this to be the last conversation that I have with her where I'm in a fight or argument. So even if it comes to that, I always just say, like, hey mom, I love you. I love you. We may not just agree to disagree, but I love you, because you just never know. And I think that's an important takeaway for our listeners to know that, listen, no matter how bad it gets with your family, no matter how bad it gets with your friends, leave with some sort of closure and say goodbye and mean it, because you never know what will happen.
So I think the broader idea here is just to make sure you let people know how you feel about them, because after my dad passed, I went to his house and was cleaning out his drawers and whatnot. And I found in there a little purple card. And it was a card that I had wrote him just 3 months before. And on that card, it was literally just something I randomly wrote. And it just said, Dad, I just want to let you know how much I love you, how much I'm grateful for you, etc. I had written that to him, I think, on 3 or 4 months before he passed. And let me tell you, Matt, there is not a single piece of anything that I have in my life that is more valuable today than that card. That card has given me so much peace, because I know that he read those words before he passed. And I think that's the feeling that, instead of just saying, oh, just make sure every goodbye is good, like, we should just be letting people know how much we love them and how much we care for them all the time, so that we never have to fear that last goodbye, right? Because if people truly know how we care, then we're not going to have any regrets if that last goodbye isn't perfect, right? So I think people who have been through the shit and who have lost people close to them know that better than anyone else. But I'm here to tell people who haven't been through that shit yet, who haven't learned the hard way, just always be forthright in telling people how you feel about them and how much you love them, and it might save you a lot of heartache in the in the future. Plus, it's a good friend.
I believe that, and again, that's such a great takeaway for anyone who is experiencing the grief or do end up going through this. I think that can resonate a lot. How would you say he lives in you today?
I mean, for the people who know my dad, he was an adventurous dude, motorcycle riding, and then, yeah, just always kind of the crazy guy of the family. And I mean, I'm not going to say I'm too crazy, but I mean, not a lot of people are going to Afghanistan.
Not a lot of people are doing what you're doing. I wouldn't call you crazy, but I'd say you're pretty crazy.
So maybe, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if I'm channeling him or I just got a few wires loose, but there's some similarities.
I think, but again, you have just like this thirst for life and thirst for adventure. And again, and it's funny, like moving into our next section, I really want to talk about how I remember you when you first said to me, hey, Matthew, I'm stopping the Capital One markets. I'm going to go for a year, try this out. And it went from 1 year to 5 years to 10 years, which is like, most people can't do that. A lot of people can't do that.
Yeah.
So can you talk to us about what was that 1 year like to then continuing and saying, hey, I'm going to continue this. And then, and like, how did that change within 5 years? And then you have a perspective, like, did you miss home? Did you miss being grounded? And then now 10 years later, like, how are you just evolved as a person? Can you talk about that evolution?
Absolutely. Because there certainly has been a level, there has been major shifts in the way that I travel and the person who I am. I will say that year one was the funnest. I'll be
Yeah.
honest. You're like a curious child going out in the world for the first time. You're breaking all the rules. You're leaving corporate. You have some money because you're just working in corporate for 5 years, and the
Yeah.
world's a lot cheaper than America for the most part. So,
Yeah.
but I think year one, I was just a curious little child, and just everything was exciting, from going to a grocery store, and I'm living in a freaking van in New Zealand, and then I find a boyfriend in Australia, a Frenchman, a beautiful Frenchman with a beautiful six pack. And,
I
it's just
remember him. Yeah, he was hot.
it's just like yeah, it was a dream. So
Oui.
wee wee. But it was fun. It was fun. It was adventurous. It was exciting. I was spreading my dad's ashes all over the world. And, that is part of the journey, like the life cycle journey of travel. It's not the same for everybody, but generally speaking, there is like this hierarchy of travel, right? And for the people who are just traveling for the first time and really getting out there, they're fulfilled by like this bottom level, which is, adventure, freedom, novelty, maybe doing particular things that they love, like going to a beach or skiing or stuff like that, right? Over time, those things the things that you will seek for fulfillment will change if you continue to travel and can continue the same at least amount of travel for me, right? So while year one was all about that adventure and that excitement, year five now, well, I'm actually year seven now. My focus is completely on like the deeper meaning and because no long, like, listen, I've 7 years, a lot of adventure. I've done the skiing, I've done the
Yeah.
paragliding, mountain climbing, I've done those things, right? And not to say that they still don't excite me and bring me happiness, right? But not at my core, right? I need
Yeah.
something in that. And so the things that actually truly give me purpose are very different now. And, it's connection, and it's using what I've learned throughout the world to help others do the same. And it's, seeing the hardships in life and seeing really people who are so much different from me and learning from their life and the things that they've gone through. And I think that's why I gravitate so much more now to, the places like Syria and Afghanistan and Algeria and things like that, where I can truly kind of like learn the core of human being from the people who have gone through some stuff, right? Like real stuff. Not to say that people, of course, people in the Western world haven't, but it's just I think that's why I kind of gravitate there, because I'm just looking for deeper meaning and deeper connections now in the way that I travel. So, this is a little long-winded.
No, but it does feel like, again, as somebody who knows you, that's like your core mission in life. Like it felt like you were brought to this earth to bridge a gap
Yeah.
for people, and it is kind of artistic and beautiful in the way it's like you are truly like an American boy. You're the epitome of like an American boy who's left to put himself in spaces all around the country, and in a time where, again, we're so polarized, and there's some people are afraid of constantly watching the news. It's nice to see you represent the ability to go beyond that and show people it's not scary, and that there are beautiful people, and we are all human, and we can connect beyond just what people say how we should connect.
Yep.
So it is, there's something beautiful in that. It's really
Yeah.
symbolic.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And here's the thing. It's not that I'm trying to just like purposely spread any like message or agenda, but what I'm just trying to do is open people's eyes to the things that I've seen. Because what I know is that
Totally.
from my travels, I have become a changed person because I've gone to
Yeah.
some of these places where people tell me not to go. They have changed me
100%.
much more than anything in the Western world is, right? So I'm just trying to bring the same experiences that I've had to others because I think that it will change them as well and make them a more empathetic, loving, kind, caring person, right? And let me tell you, as a gay man, I've got a lot of shit for that too. Going to Afghanistan, going to Syria, many people
Yeah.
say like, why would
Oh,
you
of
do that? Why
course.
would you go to this place that hates you, that doesn't accept you? And my message to those individuals are that you are never going to change hearts and minds by staying in your own corner. Never. Think about what is actually going to.
Say it louder
You
for
are
the
never
girls in
going
the
to change
back.
hearts and minds by staying in your own corner. And I think about like ask the question like what is going to do
Preach.
more to progress? Let's say like LGBT rights or something like that. Me staying home or me going over there, talking to a bunch of people, building a huge following from that country, and then showing them,
Yeah.
my lifestyle as an LGBT person, and them saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
wow, well, he's still a pretty cool dude, and he loves my country, and I like his travels." And then guess what? They have a warm vision of a person who's LGBT, and that might be the first person they ever know in real life who is that way. And then the next time, a boy from their village comes out or something like that, maybe instead of being attacked, they'll think of me and be like, "Oh, oh well, maybe he's not so odd after all. Anyways,
Do you know who I think needs to hear that message the most? Our little keyboard warriors, our little girls in the comment section. I think they need to hear that
yeah,
the most.
it's kind of you real quick. You can decide if you want to keep this in or not. But you know what? It's interesting that most of the hate that I've gotten from traveling to these places are actually from like the far left and from like some LGBT activists and stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah. I get bullied the most by our own community.
Yeah. Like in Syria, for example, I had like LGBT activists in Syria like coming after me out the woodworks way more than anyone was about me just being LGBT and being there.
Hmm.
I got some work to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, you're preaching to the choir. I got attacked by a bunch of
Oh,
lesbians for defending
oh,
Betty Who,
jeez.
so I've learned. So on a lighter note, Nick, I just for anyone who is looking to do this, and this is just I think just a
Mhm.
logistical question. How do you do this? How do you sustainably do this with not having a typical 9 to 5 job, or obviously you can't do this with a typical 9 to 5 job. How do you make money, and
Yep,
how do you sustain a life? And I think that's just a question that I think would be a nice takeaway for our listeners who would be considering doing
absolutely.
this.
So everybody wants to focus on like how do you make the money as you're doing it, and that part's actually kind of boring because the answer is like I saved up well, I invested my money well. I come from finance. I know how to play in the markets and stuff like that, and I did pretty well at doing that over the past 5 years, right? So that has sustained me from a revenue perspective. But I think the real question as to why I've been able to do this is how do I keep my expenses low? Because the truth is, I am
Yeah.
not spending that much to travel the world. That's the cold hard truth. I mean, when I was living in
Yeah.
my van in Europe, I was spending maybe $20 or $30 a day to live. I mean, with everything, gas, food,
Yeah.
it was a cheap life. And overall, I probably average about 25,000 to 35,000 a year in living expenses. That's it across the board, my entire life, right? So I think people just don't realize how cheap it is to travel in the world if you can be creative and living in the van helped a ton. Plus, it fueled my
Yeah.
ability, or desire to like want to see new things and change location every few minutes and stuff like that. So, um, but yeah, so I think it's travel hacking. Travel hacking is how I've done it. If I was living a normal life, I couldn't live in, of course, New York and not have a full time job like what I'm doing now and just work off my investments. So
Totally. I've also seen you gotten good at travel hacking, and let's plug a little Bri Guides here. I'm going to plug our mutual
mhm.
friend Brian. He started a company called Bri Guides, and it's like travel point hacking. So, although this is not sponsored by Brian, we're going
There
to
you
give
go.
a nice shout out because we do love Brian. um, so Nick, throughout all these adventures, what would you say was your lowest point and your highest point?
Yeah, well, I'll give you two answers for the lowest. The lowest actually, like practically and physically, was definitely going to Haiti. I went to Haiti. It was a few months after their president had been assassinated, and I didn't realize how much that country had fallen into anarchy. And within the first hour
Yeah.
of arriving, I was both robbed at gunpoint and an attempted kidnapping. Literally, a gang member tried to pull me out of a moving
Wow.
taxi. And that was both of those events happened within 1 hour of leaving the airport. So that was definitely my lowest moment of just like shit that actually happened to me, right? Um, but I'd say like
Yeah.
lowest mentally was I think about year 3 of the journey, actually around that same time. And that's because as my travel life cycle progressed, I started the journey to spread my dad's ashes around the world and to fulfill my dream of like living my happy deathbed, right? Or like having a smile on my deathbed, right? And after kind of that wore off and I did the adventure, I think I did that. I kind of was questioning, like, what is this all for? I was still traveling, I was still going places, but I didn't really have a purpose in doing so. And it was such an interesting place to be because I was still living what many people see as the dream. I was living the dream of so many people, and I knew that. And I was grateful for the life that I had, but I was miserable because I did not have a purpose in what I was doing. I was just traveling to travel, just wandering
Wow.
aimlessly, right? And that
Yeah.
that was actually the lowest point. That was the hardest point that I had. Now, eventually, that led to where I'm at now, and I'm grateful for having that moment. Again, that's we rise from the ashes, right? And that's when I kind of pivoted, and I said, okay, well, it's time that I take what I've learned from all these experiences and bring others along with me on this journey and share with the world. So that's when I started writing my book, and that was 3 years ago now, and
Totally.
that's when things changed. So, yeah, gotta no matter what you do in life, you gotta have a purpose. That's why when people are like, "Oh, I want to retire at 40," I'm like, "Okay, then do what? Then do what? You better have a purpose, baby." Because at 45, you're
Yeah.
gonna be a miserable dude if
Yep.
if you don't got a purpose beyond.
No, it's true. And speaking on that, like what were you thinking in those moments? I could never in my life imagine getting like held at gunpoint. Like what does one think about in that moment? Like take us there. Like what you watch it in movies, but what was it
Yeah.
actually like?
Um, it was just pure adrenaline. Well, not the robbing was actually very weird. It was like the most polite robbing in the world. The man came up with a gun in my side at an ATM and just put his hand out and goes, "Gimme," and I'm like, "Okay." And he didn't even take all of it. He
Wow.
only took some of it. He didn't even take all of
Okay.
it.
Yep.
So I'm like, "Oh, that's so polite of you. Thank you."
Oh, well, that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
gracious.
thank you. Um, and then, but that was after the attempted kidnapping was, so I was still kind of like just like jittery and out of it. But the kidnapping was just so much adrenaline. It was so chaotic. I literally like turned and like doggy kicked him out the door, and then the taxi driver flew off, and then I was
Wow.
afraid that he was going to catch up with the car again, and just pure adrenaline. So I know it all happened in a flash.
Again, like again, we all see it in movies, but like until it actually happens, I'm always curious, what is going on in your mind? What are you
And
thinking?
that moment, no, oh, actually, what I was thinking was, "What the hell am I doing? I
Yeah,
I messed up. Mama Maddock was right on
what the
that
hell am I
one."
doing?
Yeah.
Fair. Oh yeah, I'm sure she was
Yep.
pissed at that one. But on a lighter note, okay, so let's talk about your highest moments. Like what's that takeaway from those highs that you could give to our listeners who are, experiencing these highs
Yeah.
and lows?
Well, I'll say just like generally speaking, I think my highest moments are kind of in the past few months. And again, it goes back down to like finding purpose, right? In that, listen, I think you've
Yeah.
seen my content going out in the past 4 or 5 months, gone up like 100.
Yeah, yeah. You're blowing up. Everyone go follow
Yeah,
Nick
but
Maddock.
really, like I've blown up like 100,000 followers, and the reason is because like I found my flow, right? And I'm learning how to
Yeah.
bring my message of what I'm seeing and experiencing actually to the world in a real and authentic way that aligns with my core purpose and mission. And that right there is the most beautiful thing that you can do in the world is do something that, it's like, it's the ikigai, right? That aligns with your core purpose, is going to make you money and, and ultimately bring you happiness. Right. So the past few months have definitely been like the highs for me. But
Absolutely.
what's also been really special about it is that I'm realizing that as much as I've seen in the world, I've seen freaking volcanoes, I've climbed mountains, I've done all the things. I'm still really enjoying the beauty of like the simplest surprises. And I think of one moment, I recently traveled to Algeria, right? And I went to a city called Constantine, Algeria. Algeria does not have a lot of tourists. It's a really difficult visa to get. It's a huge country, but they don't have a lot of tourism, right? And so I hadn't seen much about it. But when I traveled there, I went to Constantine. I just remember being taken this waterfall right when I got there, and the sun was setting, and there's these beautiful arch bridges in the background, and it was such like a simple moment, but it just brought me so like such profound joy to just have that simple surprise of being there and witnessing this thing that like not a lot of people get to experience. And it's things like that that make me really happy that like I'm not going to get jaded by this traveling and that there's still so much experience in the
Yeah, yeah.
world. And it's just great that like, yeah, that I can still enjoy these small little moments and not be like, oh, well, I've seen every mountain, I've seen every beach, I've done all the things, and this is boring to me now. No, I'll still be excited from the small
Totally.
surprises in the world.
Totally.
Thanks.
I love that. Okay, silly question. What is one perspective on Americans from the outside world do you wish Americans knew?
Real quick, this place
we're quite a nationalist country,
this
so
plays
please
perfectly
tell
in
us.
because I don't know, you probably can't hear it, but oh, you hear the call to prayer. The
Oh
call
yeah,
to
yeah,
prayers are going off now.
yeah. We literally just
So it's
heard
a
it. Yeah,
perfect time to talk about what Americans need to.
yeah.
Um, but actually, I love the call to prayer. I think it is such a like beautiful, harmonious thing. Although the mosque is literally right next to our riyadh that we're staying at, so this speaker is like literally right above us, and it starts at 5:30 in the morning. So it's
Oh
interesting.
jeez.
But um,
Oh bless.
anyways,
Oh god. The wake up call. Who needs a
yeah.
rooster when you got the call to prayer?
Okay, so what do Americans need? Should Americans know?
We're enjoying the beauty of
I really
the
do know.
call to prayer. It sounds like a moo. On my end, it sounds like a mooing. It's
Um, I think the number one thing that Americans could learn from the world is their privilege. Their privilege. And I say this because I experienced this myself in that I grew up with a mindset that I am underprivileged. That's how I grew up thinking, right? I was on food stamps as a child. Like I said, dad was a truck driver, mom was a waiter. We weren't super wealthy or anything like that. I went to public schools, and I thought like, oh, woe is me. My parents are divorced, and I grew up in this like small neighborhood and stuff like that. And now just seeing what I've seen throughout the world in every facet. I mean, I have parents that loved me. I had a very nice home, relatively speaking, to the world that I grew up in. I had a great education in a public school. I had healthy food at my disposal. There is so much that I had that I didn't even realize. And what kind of on a deeper level now is that I've been thinking a lot lately about just the comfort of like knowing that systems work for us in America. If somebody comes up and punches me in the face,
mm-hmm.
like I know I have a recourse to, like a legal
Recourse.
recourse to absolve that, right? If I get called, harassed for being gay or something like that, right? Like our systems work really well in the USA. And then you go in the world, and I remember going to a pride festival in Georgia, the country of Georgia, and I remember like it being attacked by like far right members of the Orthodox Church. They were throwing rocks. It was crazy. People were being stabbed in the streets and stuff like that. And I just don't think Americans overall realize how good we have it across the board in every which way.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that my book will help to bring out some of that, because if people can just experience a little bit of what I experienced in the world and seen in the world, they'll realize that even the worst of us have it pretty well, and for no other reason than us winning the zip code lottery. For no other reason than that.
It's true.
So,
Again, if I could shout that from the rooftops, I will, because so for those, I think I've spoken this in the past, but like my dad's Ecuadorian and he grew up and moved here. And he's just, again, the way that I think when you surround yourself with immigrants that have come up in just a different circumstance and they move here and they it's such a vision of opportunity. And again, I know it's easier. We don't want to invalidate anyone's experience in America. We know people have it hard here, but there is a moment where you have to be like, we are so lucky to be in this country and to have the foundation and the systems and the structure and the ability to speak our mind. And that's what I think is so scary about this time, is like, I'm like, we're losing that right now with, I don't want to get too political, but like, it's a great country, no matter how much you want to hate it or it fucks
mhm.
you. Sorry. A lot of privilege in this country. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. So let's move on to talking about finding happiness and love, because that's I think a shared theme that we like in our podcast of taking all these adventures and then finding joy, finding happiness. So this is just a personal question. How do you sustain and maintain relationships while in a constant state
Well,
of change?
apparently I don't. I've been single for a while now.
That's okay. We're gonna get married eventually. I've already have it in my head. Nick is the
There you
person that
go.
I'm gonna marry, and like whenever he's ready, or I'm either gonna take up and travel the world, or he's
There
gonna
you go.
finally come back to the U.S.
But yeah, I think I just have a little bit of a different view on relationships than others, in that, like, I am quite well sustained by the relationships that I do have. I stay in touch with the people that I want to, and the people I hold dear to me and I value, and then the ones that don't, just kind of fade away, and that's okay. Ultimately, I think that I value relationships just a little bit differently than other people, and like, I don't necessarily look at myself and say like, oh, I need a partner right now. I have tons of friends. I meet people in places that I go, and I just feel fulfilled in the capacities that I have relationships. I feel supported. I feel loved, and like, as long as that's there, right now my mission is kind of like on my work and spreading these messages. Right. I had two partners in the past, and we both kind of separated for the same reasons. I wanted to continue this journey in the world, and they both wanted to kind of have a more calm and settled life, right? And that was both,
Yeah, yeah.
just something that we kind of accepted amicably, right? So I think it's just a trade-off that I'm constantly making. And it's not that I feel unloved by not having a partner. It's just that I know that I'm valuing and choosing this journey for me right now over having a relationship. So as long as I'm fulfilled and supported by the
Very
friendships
true.
and the relationships I do have, platonically or not, um, that's all I need, you know?
So essentially, having been all around the world and experiencing different versions of love, different cultures of love, I use like, arranged marriages for an example, or Americans have their own version of what love is. Like, has there been any part of different cultures that you've seen love so strongly and so deeply that you're going to carry this with you in the way that
Yeah.
you love?
Not consciously, not consciously, but I am certain that subconsciously that has played into my overall view of relationships. And it's that this view that, you know, I think overall we all seek to be loved and supported, right? And people will find that in
Hmm.
very different ways. In America, we're going to find that by finding a husband or finding a wife and getting married and having children, stuff like that. Um, in a lot of other places, it's very, very different, right? And for me, it's, hey, as long as I have friends and family, and maybe occasional partner, then I'm feeling loved and supported, right? So I think it's,
fulfilled.
yeah, I don't know if it's consciously played in there, but I'm sure it subconsciously shaped that view.
Absolutely. Um, in terms of finding love for the world and other people, I think one thing I would love to talk about too is a takeaway for our listeners about what's one thing you would tell Americans who are afraid of entering countries or interacting with people that have been villainized in the media. Like, what is right now we're seeing attacks on immigration. Like, having been all around the world and finding humanity in people, what is one takeaway that you could give
Hmm.
Americans on that?
First and foremost, I'd say that almost everywhere in the world that you go as an American, you're going to be welcomed warmly. Literally everywhere. Afghanistan,
Say it again. Say it
Algeria,
again.
Algeria, Morocco, almost everywhere. I think the only places that like I haven't been welcomed warmly are like Western European countries, like France or Germany.
Yeah, they hate us now. Trump's killing us all.
Everywhere else,
Yeah.
even the ones that we've invaded and bombed the shit out of, they go like American. Ah, we love you. We love America. It's fucking wild, and it's privilege, and it's privilege to a T, to
Wow.
be honest. But so that's the first thing I'll say is that you will be welcomed. You will be welcomed far more in the world than I think right now, where America is welcoming immigrants. Um, And number two, I'd say you have something you can learn from every single person and place in this world. And people always ask me, they're like, why do you want to go to XYZ country? Or why do you want to go to Afghanistan when they have these rules or laws and stuff like that? I don't care because there is something that I'm going to find. I don't care how effed somebody views a particular culture in their mind, there is going to be something that I can find within every country and every culture and every population that I can either learn from or grow from or find beauty in. I am absolutely dead confident of that. Put it on my gravestone. There's something that I will find of beauty there, right? And a positive message that I can share with the world or a positive element that I can share with the world. So I think that you are doing a disservice to yourself if you are unwilling to visit a particular place or country or region because of maybe one particular view or issue or thought about that culture that you have without knowing everything else, including the really beautiful elements that have yet to be seen.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think more people need to hear that. I think chronically online people need to hear that. Chronic news watchers need to hear that. We can learn something from everyone. We are forever students, and I think it's so important to
Especially for the people who are really learning to who are really yearning to learn deeply and deep cultural things and understand humanity better. It's the places that have been through the shit that are going to teach you the most. Like
yeah.
compare a person living a average corporate life in London, versus a mom who survived the Alawite massacre in Syria, and sit down over tea with those two
Yeah.
individuals, and who do you think you're going to learn more about from a perspective of humanity and empathy and love and kindness? I mean, sorry to the Londoner, but I'm gonna sit with that mama and have some tea, and we're gonna get into the real shit about life, love, and pursuit of happiness. And it's these places that have
Yeah.
had it the worst. I think that we, as Americans and our privileges, can learn and grow the most from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you. Okay, so we got a little sneak peek of your book and all the stories that you've shared, and thank you,
Absolutely.
Nick, for that. Just because I love an inside scoop, what can readers expect to find out in your book that they wouldn't get from your social media?
I think they're gonna, when you pull back the curtains, we hit on it a little bit in this interview. Not everything was rosy. you know, if you look at my social media, of course, you're posting the good moments, you're posting the happy moments. Very rarely am I going to sit there and just like cry on camera. And, you know, if people don't want to see that, they're not going to engage with that, right? So that's not really put out there as much. But like year 3 and 4 of traveling, it was hard. It was hard. I was kind of like purposeless, and I was going through a lot of trying to find like my path in life and stuff like that. So I think you're going to see a lot of that realness and rawness, and more of the um, contemplative life decisions, right? That I think a lot of us will go through no matter what in life, of what is our purpose, what are we doing with our lives, what should we do next, etc. And I think I get a lot deeper into those elements within the book that you're not just going to see in social media. Yeah, social media is a highlight reels of adventure and goodness and stuff like that, but the book gets deeper.
Is there anything that you can tell our listeners that are exclusive that wasn't in the book?
God, you know, I tried to think on this one and I couldn't come up with anything because I've thrown everything in the book. I've done everything.
Or maybe you can even end with like a short little funny little quip or funny little story that you've had.
Here's some tea that's not in the book.
Yeah, give us the tea. Give us the tea.
Okay, so you know I've had 2 exes, right? We say the French one and the American one.
Yeah.
I'm with the American one right now in Morocco.
Oh, inside scoop. We love it. I'm playing TMZ. I love it.
Yeah, and Jake says hello, Matt, by the way.
Oh, tell Jake I say hi and that I miss him, and that, you know, good. That makes me happy. He's very special. He's really, you can tell his energy is very unique. Well, glad we got the inside scoop. Well, Nick, thank you so much. I think I really love this conversation. And, you know, I know we have our chances where we see each other in random countries and we have our catch ups, but I feel like I learned so much more about you. I feel like our listeners, for those who don't know you or those that do know you, like they've really got to know you truly through this interview. And again, I say you're one of the coolest people that I know. Everywhere I go, anyone I meet, I always say the coolest person I know is Nick Maddock, and if you don't know him, you will. Like, you just are so cool. So on Thanks for Swiping Left, we like to end with a little game. It's called Thanks for Swiping Left. So where we kind of have like a 30-second timer. It's kind of, I don't know if you've listened to Last Culture Recess, but you know how like, you know, I don't think so, honey. It's type of that version. But like, can you do a 30-second rant on a person or experience that has failed you and then has led to your success?
God, this is so hard. Honestly, the main thing is actually like, but this sounds so fucked, but it's like, actually, no, I think I want to do this. It's actually my dad's passing, my brother's stroke. Like, or maybe it's too serious.
No, there's nothing too serious. Okay. So Nick Maddock, starting with your 30-second Thanks for Swiping Left, we are starting.
Okay.
And
so to whatever force of nature out there, you know, for the reason that my dad passed and my brother's stroke and whatnot, is fucked up as it is, I am thankful for the lessons that came from it, because they were the single greatest inflection points of my life. Those lessons and those values that were instilled in me after those incidents are the reason that I am here today doing everything that I'm doing. So I'm not thankful the experiences happened, but I am so thankful for the lessons that came from them and the person that I am today because of them. I got seconds. Okay.
Thanks for swiping left, 30 seconds. Thank you, Nick Maddock. You killed it. So again, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Nick, where can they find you on your socials and talk, you know, where can they buy the book?
Nick Maddock Global.
Nick Maddock Global across Instagram.
Yep,
Are you on TikTok?
and YouTube. Yep. Nick Maddock Global.
Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Go and follow him. And when do we know when the book comes out?
It'll be some time. But you follow the social, I won't shut up about it once it's out. So.
Period. And I will be posting it and reposting it, so you'll be aware. Okay. Well, thank you again, Nick. I appreciate you taking the time. I always feel my cup fills
right
whenever
back
I
at
talk
you.
to you. So
I love your energy. Thank you so much for having me and having me as your first guest. It's
Thank
such an
you.
honor.
Best guess ever.
All right.